Hey guys, welcome to Pistons Talk Podcast. Hope you guys are having a great weekend, great Sunday. Have a returning guest. I feel like I have to have Sean on at least once a month because it's just so great to talk to you. I would say out of the returning guests, you probably make me laugh the most. Like I feel like we vibe off
Appreciate it,
each
man.
other. We've worked together before, but thank you so much for coming back on the show, man. I do appreciate it.
Oh, dude, thanks for having me. I have a blast coming on. Always enjoy chatting it up with you. We'll text each other during the games and stuff, just thoughts and everything going on. So, yeah, man, just love to be able to talk Pistons and basketball as a whole. And, just with your knowledge and, you, like you said, like we both like to not take ourselves too seriously. So it's a good combination.
Honestly, we got people in the chat. Appreciate you guys, coming on in. If you are coming on in, make sure to hit that like button. It does help the YouTube algorithm push out more Detroit Pistons content to you guys, and maybe other Detroit Pistons fans like yourself. Also, if you could do us a favor, leave us a 5-star review and whatever you get your podcast. It does. I appreciate it at the end of the day. I know I do piss some people off, and hey, that's to be expected when you make podcasts 4 or 5 times a week.
When you make your opinions known on a regular basis, it's going to offend somebody for some
Mhm.
reason.
Yeah, I mean, I got my first death threat today, so I think I'm doing something right.
Hey, congrats.
I'll have to tell Eric because it was something that we talked about last weekend.
Oh boy.
Players being untouchable, but that's what it stemmed from. But let's get into these topics, man, because
Let's do it.
there's a lot to get into, and I think before we even get into the games of the week, we got to talk about Jaden Ivey. I
Yep.
feel like that's the one thing that a lot of people probably want us to talk about. What were your overall thoughts? Like one with the injury against the Magic, and maybe two, like a bigger picture of like where this team could possibly end up in terms of like competing for the playoffs.
Yeah, so obviously the initial reaction is, "Oh no," right? Like just immediately just devastation for Ivy, for, just for the season that he was having, especially like coming off of the illness. He was playing his best basketball of his life. But, upon learning more about the injury, once we learned it was broken fibula, that nothing else was broken, there's no ligament damage, no tissue damage, immediately, there's a sense of relief. Now, according to, the Pistons, he's going to be reevaluated in 4 weeks. It's a type of injury where the timeline for return varies very much case by case. I know Alex Ovechkin just returned off of like 4 to 6 weeks from when he broke his fibula. Now it's different because hockey is just a different sport, and how you're managing the load bearing than to basketball. You rely much more on your knees, in my opinion, in basketball, especially when you're talking about, jumping off the ground, relying off your athleticism, which is a big part of Jaden Ivey's game. So all that to say, we have no clue when he'll actually be back, but I do think it says a lot that the Pistons are not ruling him out on coming back this season. In fact, they hope he can come back. And thus far, obviously, in the 2 games that they've been without him, they've been able to weather the storm. I think that this group can very much still keep on the trajectory that they're on, but I think it's going to take not only guys like Tobias Harris to step up, but I think you'll need, improved. I think you'll need more of Asar Thompson implemented into the lineup and just into, your game plan as a whole. And I think that just naturally happens as the season goes on, as his minute restrictions, get looser, as he's in better shape. He's already, showcasing, especially in that game against Minnesota last night. We'll talk about that in a bit, I'm sure, but he looked sensational. But you'll also need offensive, contributions from guys like Simone Fontecchio, from, if Marcus Sasser is going to get significant shine, you need his 3-point shooting to be a big part of what you have going there. Like, you need guys to step up. When you lose a 20-point a game scorer, you're generally not going to get that from one person. That's generally going to be made up by a committee. So, I think that's the biggest thing. I think the prospects of the Pistons going out and making a big move to fill that gap doesn't make much sense to me. I definitely think getting like a secondary ball handler is something that you would probably need, but if you're spending anything more than a second round pick or getting some swaps in exchange, I just don't think it's necessarily worth it for where the Pistons are at, especially with needing to, they still need to acquire assets, which I think they're in a position to do without necessarily having to give anyone up. But overall, I would say the biggest thing that this kind of throws question marks as far as big picture is, what does this mean for Jaden Ivey, and any thoughts of like the extension, right? And I think a lot of it's now going to come back to, when does he come back? What does he look like when he comes back? And is this something that will affect him long term? More than likely, since again there's no ligament damage, no tissue damage, I would say when he comes back, he should be able to look very similar to the Jaden Ivey we saw before the injury. It just, the timing of it couldn't be worse. But again, the circumstances most certainly could have been worse.
I hate that he got injured, because I felt like once he came back on that West Coast trip, especially against the Phoenix game, I felt like he was playing the best ball of his career. Like
Oh yeah.
just the way he was shooting the basketball, hitting outside perimeter shots. I hate that he got injured. Honestly, I know some people want to label Cole Anthony as a dirty player. I really don't think he's a dirty player.
Not at all.
I think it was just a thing of him trying to make a play on the ball. Was it a bonehead play? Sure. But you could tell that he felt like a piece of crap. I mean, like, he was like visibly upset. Like,
He was as devastated as anybody.
He really was. I'm glad you did mention Alex Ovechkin, because I did see some Pistons fans bring that up. I would say Alex Ovechkin is one of one.
He is a freak of nature.
Yeah. Not to say that Jaden Ivey isn't a freak of nature. Alex Ovechkin, I mean, when you talk hockey, I mean, you bring his name up with like Sidney Crosby and like Wayne Gretzky, because those guys are just like one of one athletes. And to your point, hockey is a much different sport. And I believe, like, if Jaden Ivey does come back this year, I think it'll be like around that April timetable, like that.
Mhm.
That would check out, like, reevaluation in 4 weeks, rehab, and we all know what the type of athlete Jaden Ivey is, the type of worker that he is. I know you guys have probably been around the team, seeing him in pregame warmups, talking to the media. Like, the guy
Mhm.
is just a basketball junkie at the end of the day. He wants to be better, and I'm sure that the Pistons are really going to miss him. And
Yeah.
it's so satisfying to see this team still find ways to win at the end of the day without their second best leading scorer in Jaden Ivey. But man, my initial reaction was, I was upset. Like, I wasn't even hyped after the Orlando win, even though they spanked our ass like 7 times in a row and we broke that streak. Like, I was visibly like upset. Like, I didn't sleep that night. I was just like, man, like, what are we gonna do now? Like, see, a lot of people, like, season's over. Like, we're not making the play in. I saw a lot of people saying just tank for Cooper Flag, like the season's over. But this team's still, competing and trying to, get into the playoffs, and I love to see it.
Yeah, I mean, they've won 6 of their last 7 games, which is something that they haven't done, since Blake Griffin was having his, MVP caliber season in a Pistons uniform. If we weren't getting the production of Malik Beasley to the level that the Pistons have gotten, this would be a genuine crisis. However, when you have guys that are stepping up in the ways that they are, Jalen Duren, to his credit, at least offensively, is playing some pretty good basketball over his last couple of outings. You're again Asar Thompson, and the level of play that we're seeing from him on both sides of the court. Ron Holland continues to get better as the season goes on, and his shooting is looking more reliable as each game goes on too. Like, I think there's a lot of factors that go in, and I think I think the credit has to go to JB Bickerstaff and his coaching staff of being able to have that continuity and to keep guys focused and engaged, and to be able to fight through that type of adversity, because adversity was just this team's worst enemy over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I do agree. I felt like if like you lost a player, like, there's no way they go in a 3-game win streak. There's no way that they could come back from that Charlotte game. If that was a team last year or even the year before that, like, if there's anything that would go wrong, like, I think we would probably both agree that it would just be a Pistons loss, and we'd probably sit up here saying, like, what's wrong with this team? But they're just finding ways to win without key players on the roster, and I think it's really important. But really like your just analysis with the Jaden Ivey thing. I think we're pretty much in the same ballpark of, like, injury sucked, but this team is finding new creative ways to win. I
Mhm.
did want to kind of get into the veterans
Yeah.
and wanted to get your overall thoughts and opinions on it. Like, what veteran do you expect to step up the most? I know we had Tobias have a career night against the Hornets. Last night it was Malik Beasley. It's like overall, like out of Malik, Tim Hardaway, Tobias, who do you think is probably going to be the most consistent vet during the stretch without Ivy?
Yeah, I think Malik Beasley's been your most consistent vet, all season long. And, in terms of stepping up, to me, when I think of stepping up, not to get into like the semantics of the question, but to me, I think of who's going to be able to ramp up their production. I don't know if Malik Beasley can be doing much more than he is right now, just from the standpoint of his shooting and the scoring that he's bringing. I mean, to me, he's one of, if not the sixth man of the year, and he's right up there with Anthony Edwards for the leaders in three-point shots made this season. So I don't know how much more he can do necessarily. So I think the piston that they do need to step up, and quite frankly, I think the one that kind of has needed to step up as the season has gone on is Tobias Harris, just because of the fact that he is the one. Tim Hardaway Jr. was, someone they brought in on an expiring contract. I think it was kind of one of those things where you saw the value of what he could bring, but ultimately, since he's an expiring contract, I don't think he's necessarily in the long-term plans of what Detroit has going on here. It can kind of be seen as a wash. But he's still giving you good three-point shooting. He's one of the league leaders in charges taken. I want to look up the numbers, but I'm pretty sure he's probably already taken more charges this season than the Pistons did all of last year combined, just with what he's been able to bring to the table. Tobias just needs to be shooting the ball better and scoring on a more consistent basis. Now, I do think it's important to point out that Tobias does bring the off the court, benefits to this team. He does, even when he isn't necessarily shooting the best, he's still engaged in the game. He still finds a way to, like, whether it's producing rebounding, whether it's making occasional good defensive plays, like he's still like making impacts on the game even when his shot isn't going down. But the bottom line is they just need more scoring production from him. And it seems like a lot of times when his shot's not falling, there's just not quite enough lift. Like they're always like just short.
Hmm.
It almost just feels like his legs aren't always quite there, might just be dealing with the fatigue and things that come with age and with being, a player for as long as he has been. But again, he was a big component to them getting that win, against Charlotte the other night. When he's scoring and when he's affecting the game in that way, this is a much better basketball team. So to me, he's the one that has to step up. And again, with Malik Beasley's been your most consistent veteran. I just don't know how much more he can do because he's been doing so much.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. People were getting on Malik's ass, and he had two bad games, and we're like almost 40 games into the season, and it was like a 2 game like little slump, and people are complaining. The fact that like people are complaining just shows you how consistent he's been throughout the season of just being just like a flamethrower off the
Mhm.
bench. I do agree with you with the Tobias point, because I think for this team to keep the trajectory that they're on, Tobias at least has to give you a good 15 points a night to
Mhm.
give this team a shot to win. I will say, though, I think his defense has not been getting talked about enough. His rebounding, I think, has been excellent.
Yep.
I loved that he was guarding Miles Bridges this week. And, Miles Bridges, for what it's worth, the basketball player, we've seen him score 30 on the Pistons routinely over the years. I
Mhm.
mean, he's taking a challenge of being a good defender, even at his age, at 32. Even though we're the same age, and I'm calling him older, it kind of feels wild to me. But
Yeah.
like when you're talking about like 32 in basketball years, it's kind of older when a lot of these kids are 18, 19 coming out of the draft. But um, I think consistently, I'd like to see Tobias step up more. But if I did have to guess, I think Malik is just going to probably be the most consistent player to step up. Maybe instead of 20 points, he can get you up to 25 points. Who knows? I
Yeah.
mean,
I mean,
if the
he's on pace to shatter, the Pistons 3-point shooting records for, a single season. Like he's having statistically the best shooting season a Pistons ever had with what he's doing. And, I thought he was going to be solid, as a shooter. Like, we all knew his history and his resume as far as that was concerned. but just the level of a 3-level scorer he's been, and just, the microwave that he's been off the bench, which, by the way, I know people are like, "Oh, why isn't he starting?" He's part of our best 5-man lineup, but, like, the truth of the matter is he is our second unit scoring. Like, that is where it comes from night
Yeah.
in and night out. And so to me, and the other thing, quite frankly, you're winning games. So, like, why mess with a formula that's working? So that's just my opinion on that.
Yeah, I mean, I put a bet on him to win sixth man of the year because I think it's between him and Peyton Pritchard personally. I think those are two guys that will definitely be in the conversation. Like, how wild would it be if you had, Malik Beasley, sixth man of the year conversations, and JB Bickerstaff, coach of the year conversations when we won 14 games last year? Like, why not just complete 180 from this team?
Yeah, I mean, what a massive 180 that this franchise has done. I mean, it's amazing what a year can do, because this time last year, like, we had just broken the 28 game losing streak and started another losing streak.
Yeah, I mean, like, I know this is completely off topic, and we'll get to the next topic after this, but, like, when Washington lost 12 straight, I was just like, there's no way. There's
Right.
no way they're going to lose 28 straight games with all the talent that they have, like Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma. But, like, if they do, I'm not upset.
I would, part of me would have, from a human element, you would have had to have felt at least a little bad for Troy Weaver having to go through that 2 years in a row, or even guys like Marvin Bagley. It's like, oh no, come on.
That would have just been like an all-time, like, NBA Twitter, like NBA Reddit would have had a field day with that. I already know.
Oh,
Like,
the memes would have been generational.
Oh, it really would.
Generational.
It would, man. Like, I sent you one of the NBA Reddit memes that I saw of some Pistons last night, and you were like, dude, like, that's funny. I can't share that, but they were so bad, man. Like, for what everyone gives like Elon like crap, but his like AI grok stuff, bro, like some of the memes I've seen, especially from like people on Twitter,
Oh.
people are like photoshopping like Killian Hayes and Monty Williams in like Christmas sweaters. Like,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Some of like I'm not sure how reliable Grok is as a source of getting information, but what I can tell you is that Grok is very reliable in getting good quality memes. It is very, very capable of that.
yeah. I mean, the one you sent me last night, dude, I've literally like looked at it probably like 10 times today, just laughing at it. Like, just put the sub in the bag, bro. Like, people have no idea what that fuck we're talking about, and I love it. I do want to get into just the games this week. Just your overall thoughts. Obviously, this is the first time that the Detroit Pistons went 3-0 throughout the season. A win over Charlotte, which I didn't think they were going to win, especially the way they played in the first half. A win over, I can't remember who they played, Orlando, and then a win over, Minnesota. There we go. My brain is just fried by Sunday. What were kind of like this your overall thoughts on the games this week and like where this team is heading?
Yeah, I mean, just talking about the, like, good teams find ways to win, bad teams find ways to lose. The Pistons, like, these are all games that the Pistons would have lost a year ago, like, just quite frankly. And the fact that, like, the Pistons, like, they didn't play perfect basketball, they didn't look, their greatest each and every night, but, like, the thing that's constant is, Cade Parker Cunningham looks like every last bit of the franchise player and the star player that you wanted him to be. The level of, defense that you're getting from guys like Isaiah Stewart, on a night in, night out basis as well. It's just the fact that, again, it's the overcoming adversity of, like you said, the first half in Charlotte, and the foul disparity of, like, I think it was 27-10 was the foul disparity between Detroit and Charlotte. And then, you got a pretty similar, feeling of that against Minnesota. A lot of games this year, like when Minnesota, like the Minnesota game, for example, the Pistons a lot of times this year blew that type of lead, and it came down to the wire to close. Whereas this time around, the Pistons, made sure that it was out of reach and never let Minnesota even get back into the game. So, even though like you're still getting those stretches of, not making the best decisions and missing, rotations defensively. And, I think the defensive side is definitely where this team still has a long ways to go as the season's gone on. Like they started out strong defensively and just couldn't hit a shot to save their lives. Now they're getting better with their offensive efficiency and their defensive efficiency is kind of what's been tanking. They're finding out a recipe to win games, and it doesn't always look pretty, but for this team, it's just about finding a way to get a W on the board, and especially, not allowing yourself to play down to the competition, with all due respect to a team like Charlotte or even like Orlando, where that's a good basketball team, but they were missing so many key players, right? So, just the fact that they're able to take care of home court, take care of the business that they need to, and dig themselves, out of whatever holes that they've put themselves in. That's what you see from good teams.
I would say the Utah game to me, the more I look at it, I think was a wake up call for this team.
Yep.
Because I think a lot of people, when they saw Utah on the schedule a couple weeks ago, they thought it was going to be an easy win and the Pistons should have won that game. And obviously they didn't. They almost gave up 50 points to them in the first quarter. And then you go on that West Coast trip, you come back 3-1, the best West Coast trip since 2008. I think this team is starting to gel and starting to figure out how to close basketball games, taking better care of the basketball outside of like the Orlando game. And I'll give them a pass just because Orlando is just such an elite team of forcing you to turn the ball over. They're just so long, like, having defenders like Jonathan Isaac and Jalen Suggs. It's just like those guys are just like all defensive team defenders. Like they're really hard to, play against. But like overall, I thought just what JB said this summer, like, around this time, you'll start to see, Detroit Pistons basketball. And I mean, they've won 8 out of the last 11 games. They're looking like a legitimate Eastern Conference playoff team.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And it's not just the overall team development, but it's the development of your young players that you're seeing as well. Like since December 1st, Cade's averaging 25, 10, and 6, shooting 46% from the field and 38% from 3. Like that's all-star caliber numbers. That is a franchise player bona fide. And I looked it up just to verify because the commenter pointed it out earlier. Since December 1st, Ron Holland's shooting 41% from 3. Like you're seeing the impact of having like a Fred Vincent in your building like right now. And so the fact that you're getting that type of development and, really ever since this team started the season 0-5, they've been an over 500 team. And now, as of recording, like tomorrow night, they have an opportunity to get right to 500. And, like who knows, obviously with Jaden Ivey being out, you would imagine that's going to, that it's going to have some form of impact eventually. But if they keep playing at this level, there's no reason why they couldn't be over 500 for at least a little bit of the season.
I know it's Chauncey Billups night. It would be really huge for the Pistons to kind of spoil that parade. He's coming back. And can I just say something about the bobblehead that the Pistons released?
Yeah, absolutely. Go right on ahead.
Why the fuck does it look like LeVar Ball kissing a trophy?
I have not seen this bobblehead yet, so I am looking it up as we speak.
Go on the Pistons Twitter account. They posted it this morning or this afternoon. Like, they know that they have promotional nights, and they know that like we got to get bobbleheads made. Like the Pistons still use the same bobblehead company that they've used for like the past like 3 years to mass produce them. But like, no lie, man, that does not look like Chauncey Billups. That looks like just LeVar Ball, like straight up. Like,
I'm not going to share my full thoughts, but what I will say is it is interesting that he is kissing the trophy with his eyes closed. I just interesting touch, but that is all I will say on the matter.
Yeah, I mean that's the MVP trophy that he won in 2004. But
here's what I will say: shout out Chauncey.
Yeah, same here, man. Portland's playing better ball. I think Ryan had brought out that the Blazers beat Milwaukee. So and
Mm-hmm.
that's a team that the Pistons have had their trouble with. I mean, they have talented guys like DeAndre Ayton, who I think is kind of going under the radar. He's having a pretty decent season.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremy Grant, Anthony Simons, like they got players over there that could definitely give the Pistons some trouble. So I think that's a trap game if you do ask me. Like don't
Yep.
look at their record and say like, well, they got 12 wins. Like we just beat Minnesota that has 17 wins. Like this will be an easy game. I don't think it'll be an easy game because they have vets, they have their mixture of young guys, mixture of defenders. So I think it's actually going to be a closer game than people realize.
They have 12 wins in a really competitive Western Conference. They have guys like Shaden Sharp, who can pop off on any given night. Anthony Simons is also someone else who, is just a really high level scorer. Scoot Henderson was a number 2 overall pick for a reason and can still on occasion showcase that too. So I agree. I don't think it's a game that you can take lightly. And, I'm just glad to see Chauncey getting some success and seeing some turnaround there. Cause I think he was really dealt a rough hand with Portland, especially losing Damian as quickly as he did. Like he went in expecting one thing and has gotten a whole other circumstance with the Trailblazers. So, glad to see that they're letting him, figure that out, not pulling a Sacramento and firing him like a week, with like a week of troubles.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of getting the Wayne Casey treatment if you think about it. Like Wayne
Yeah.
Casey had a playoff roster and then he pulled the plug, and Chauncey's going through the same thing. And I wish him well. The fact that Portland fired his brother over the summer was just like crazy to me. It's just like firing his own brother that was on the coaching staff. Like, what are we doing here in Portland? Like, Portland's ownership grip is like nothing to like brag about, but I mean, pretty wild. But it's going to be a really, really interesting game. I did kind of want to transition since we're talking about coaches. We did see a starting lineup change, so I wanted to kind of get your overall thoughts. I know JB had mentioned that like the shooting guard spot is not set in stone. So the first game he started Wendell Moore Jr., which a lot of people were not a fan of. But last night we saw Asar Thompson play small forward, and they put Tim Hardaway at his natural position at shooting guard. So what have you thought of JB's new rotations with Jaden Ivey being out?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's a difficult balance because you don't want to, mess with the chemistry and with what you've built upon, from the beginning of the season until now. So it's always difficult whenever you lose that type of player of, who do you just slot into that spot? I think obviously you saw with Asar Thompson getting that opportunity, just the level of defensive energy that he brings and just the ways that he can impact the game, his gravity, above the rim, just all of those things are on full display. So I would imagine that that's going to be more set in stone as the games go on. I mean, I just not to be boring, but I do think it's just going to be Asar Thompson moving forward, just because again, as he gets more minutes and as he's able to, have less restrictions, I just think he's such a, crucial player to what this team wants to be going forward. And I still think he's probably their best defensive player, right up there with Isaiah Stewart. So, I definitely think the Wendell Moore thing, it makes, I get why people look at it and go, what the heck? But to me, it's like, he's someone that you can play minimal minutes. You can still make your regular rotations. It's not necessarily like that's a lineup you're going to be finishing the game with either. So, and say what you will about Wendell Moore, but he's given you like consistent effort. And it's not like he's played bad basketball whenever he's been on the court for this team. So, I think with JB, you just, with the quality of job he's done, I think, for lack of better term, just kind of let him cook and let him see what he has. He's someone that's shown that's to be very willing to make adjustments. He's not married to, any decisions that he makes. So, for me, I just, again, he's shown why he's been such an effective coach, for this team up to this point. And so I imagine you'll see some more experimentation, but more than likely, I think you'll come to the conclusion that a lot of people have, which is, oh yeah, this Asar Thompson guy's really good. Let's keep him on the court.
Yeah, I don't think JB is going to need any organizational meetings to change his starting lineup.
No,
I just don't think that's going to be the case. I know people are really, really upset with like the Wendell Moore thing, but like if you watch the majority of the Pistons games this year, you should know that Wendell Moore is like a really hard worker, good defender. It like in the Denver game, I thought he was a big piece of why they got back into that game late in the fourth quarter. He's had
Mhm.
stretches where in the Milwaukee game, the first Milwaukee game, he stepped up big, hit some, crucial 3-point shots. I didn't hate the decision. I was kind of surprised because I thought it was just going to be a Sar Thompson spot
Yep.
because he got off that minute restriction. I was like, yeah, just slide Tim over to the 2 and a Sar at the 3. Like, you'll be more athletic. You could run more. That's what they did last night. But I like that JB isn't married to the fact that, like, this is just going to be the starting 5 from here on out. Like, he told the reporters, like, it's matchup dependent. He said,
Yep.
we have to run faster than Minnesota. So that's why I played Asar, because Asar is just a transition nightmare. And, man, that off-glass dunk, man, they gave me, like,
Healthy.
Andre Drummond, Brandon Jennings vibes from back in the day. I don't know if you remember those dunks that those guys used to just, like, throw off
Oh,
glass.
yeah.
But
And then there's the also the dunk that he had over Rudy Gobert that didn't count. There's the image that's going viral of the reaction of, like, Naz Reid and, like, I forgot who else, but they were just sitting, like, the reaction right as the dunk happened where they're like they're just looking like absolute shock, like, "Oh my gosh." Like, he is just one of the elite athletes that this league has. Like, the NBA has the best athletes in the world, and even for this league, he's just a different athlete. Him and his brother both are just insane when it comes to their potential, just their basketball IQ, their athleticism. They naturally affect the game without having a three-point shot. That tells you how good they are.
it's and the amount of people that were shocked that Asar, like, did that, and, like, I think as Pistons fans, we weren't, like, really getting too hyped with the dunk because, like, I feel like he's tried to put someone on a poster, like, every game since he's come
Uh-huh.
back. Like, even his rookie year, like, just the bounce that this guy has, it's ridiculous. And then, like, Johnny Kane shared that, like, his parents made Asar and Amen play volleyball and ballet
Yep.
while they were in high school. Like, I see the volleyball, like, all day. Like, the way
Mhm.
that he just floats in the air, man. It's like a 2K, like, my career guy, just like you just gave him like 100, like, I don't even know, like, jumping ability. It's crazy.
Well, and you nailed it when you it's like he doesn't just jump, he floats. Like the ability to get in the air and to stay in the air is just not something that the human body's designed to do. And, I could see I could see the ballerina stuff as well, just with his balance, with his ability to, you know, to keep stable and to do the different things that he does, his touch, his finesse. It's just he's a special player. And again, we saw how good he was and what he was doing in his rookie year before, the unfortunate things came down. I just think as the season goes on, and again, as the opportunities present itself, I think you're only going to see his minutes go up and up and up.
Yeah, I think so too. The fact that he had 5 steals in the first half, like, that's some Dyson Daniels type stuff. It was just having,
Yeah.
like an excellent just start in Atlanta right now. Like, I mean, those Thompsons wins, man, they're next level. Like, I
Yeah.
remember people saying, like, oh, it's just Stanley Johnson, a carbon copy. Like, no.
No. No. They are not even in the same stratosphere with the way that they approach the game and their work ethic. Like Asar Thompson, I don't think he knows what off-court interests even means.
Yeah, like, it's honestly insane, just like the type of plays that he makes. Like, I compared him to Dennis Rodman last night
Yep.
because he gives me Rodman vibes, the hustle plays, like, out rebounding Rudy Gobert when you're 6'7", like, it's just crazy to me.
Yep.
Like, he had more blocks than Jalen Duren last year, but that has more. We're not even gonna get into that because
He's
I think
Dennis Rodman, but you know for a fact he's never gonna have the Vegas retreats.
we're dating Madonna, so.
Yeah. Carmen Electra, we are clear of that.
Um, I completely forgot about that. With it being trade deadline season, we have to talk about, some guys that probably won't get traded to the Pistons, but the fans want to talk about it.
Of course,
So
of course.
these are fan-centric questions. So
Yep.
Brandon Ingram, there was an asking price, and I don't know how reliable Evan Sedri is, and I never want to, like, take away anyone's reporting, but he had said that the asking price for Brandon Ingram was a prospect, a draft pick, and expiring deals. So do you think if that is actually the asking price, the Pistons should at least, start some conversations with New Orleans for Brandon Ingram?
I would imagine that conversations are, that conversations could be had, that there could be some casual phone calls. I think the one thing that I would point out for people to consider is that if there's anybody that has an understanding of Brandon Ingram's health history and who he is as a player, who he is as a person, it's probably Trajan Langdon and Michael Blackstone and Fred Vinson and all these people that came from the New Orleans Pelicans and did work with Brandon Ingram for as long as they have. So in my opinion, and this is just sheer speculation, I think if the Pistons, I think if Trajan Langdon wanted Brandon Ingram in Detroit, I think it could have and would have happened by now. I think the market for for Brandon Ingram, in his availability was so pronounced and kind of well known, and I think that would have been a move that would have made if they wanted to make, could have been made in the summer. I just don't know if with his health history and with those different things, I just don't know if he's a fit in Detroit long term, especially with the fact that, he's kind of already 27, 28 years old. It's one of those things where, I get that you gotta take a risk at some point. It's got to be a calculated risk. I just think that again, the person you have in charge knows the history, knows what's going on with Brandon Ingram. I think if he wanted him in Detroit, I think he could have had him in Detroit.
I think you could have had him this summer personally if you wanted him.
Yep. I think so too.
Those are the conversations that I was having this past summer. It's like, if you take the contract into effect with Ingram, he's on an expiring. So you probably don't want to give up a whole lot to get him. And obviously the Pelicans are just where they're at. I don't think they expected to be at the bottom of the Western Conference or one of the worst teams in basketball. I just don't think that, especially with, acquiring DeJounte Murray, and you'd hope Zion Williamson's healthy. You'd hope Brandon Ingram's healthy. But I think if the asking price lowers a little bit, because I don't think they're going to get that. I just don't. I mean,
right.
Apparently Utah was interested, but Ingram was not willing to sign a long-term deal with the Utah Jazz, which I was just like, it kind of speaks volume when you see that he changed his agencies too. He went from Excel, who represents Kate Cunningham, to Rich Paul, Clutch Sports.
Yep.
And anytime an athlete signs with Clutch Sports, those guys are getting the bag.
They are looking to get their money, and they want to have the best negotiator in the game, to be leading those talks. And that's the other element of making that type of trade is, what do you pay Brandon Ingram? Like, if you're a Pistons team that, that has Jaden Ivey coming up for an extension, you have to figure out what you want to do with Jalen Duren. Do you really want to commit like $40-50 million a year to Brandon Ingram, which, as good of a scorer as he is, and let's be honest, as much as good production as he had in New Orleans, he probably could have even better production in the Eastern Conference, seeing that it is not quite as deep. I just don't know if, with his availability problems, with some of those things, to me, that just feels like a very easy mistake that could be made. And it could be a trade that you could almost immediately look at and go, oh no, what have we done? So to me, I just don't know if the reward is worth the risk.
I don't think so either. And to your point with like him not like really being available and like being injured, it's like, this is an organization. Like, I know they hired a brand new medical staff, but this is an organization, since Arnie Kander and Mike Appenauer are no longer, with this team, they have not done the best job of keeping guys healthy throughout the season. There's been like a lot of ticky-tack nagging injuries that just keep these guys out for several games and even sometimes months. Brandon Ingram is out with an ankle injury right now. He's not playing. I think if you're Detroit, I think the only way you do trade for Ingram is if the the offer is so low that you just can't refuse it, and it's just like too good to pass up, then do it. But I wouldn't want to give up like one of our prospects. I wouldn't want to give them like a guy like I'm just throwing it out there. Like I wouldn't want to give Isaiah Stewart up in a Brandon Ingram deal when there's no guarantee that he wants to be here and resign with the Detroit Pistons long term. I think that would be a mistake. I wouldn't want to give up a draft pick because we don't really have too many draft picks. We have draft picks, but you know what I'm talking about. You can't really trade them because it's going to be Minnesota's draft pick anyways. I don't know what I'm talking about. And I don't want to give up like an expiring, like, do I really want to give them a Malik Beasley? Do I really want to give them a Tim Hardaway Jr. for a guy that, might not, suit up for 40, 50 games a year? And, oh, yeah, he wants a max. Yeah, I think I'm good.
Yeah, he's only suited up for like 60 plus games 4 out of his 9 years. And one of them was his rookie year when he played 79, but he hasn't even gotten over 70 once since. So you're talking about a guy who is going to miss like at least 15 to 20 games on average, guaranteed every single year. So 1 out of 4 games, you're not having one of your best players. Is that something that you really want to like to pull the trigger on for someone who is like a 22 point a game player? I don't really think so, especially with how much better the league has gotten with scoring and how much more guys are coming into the league with some of those skill sets day one. I think the value of a Brandon Ingram over time is gone down. And I think that's why you're seeing the Pelicans in this limbo with him of teams like the trade market isn't necessarily something we love. Like the salary numbers that we're talking about, we don't necessarily love. He's just kind of been sitting in this void for almost a year now.
Yeah, and like there's reports that he turned down like $40 million a year from the Pelicans.
Yeah.
I was like, brother, what are you doing? Like, you're not healthy. Like, I would have taken that all day.
Absolutely.
Like, you think you're gonna get $50 million? You think a team next year is going to commit $50 million to? No. Like, I know we played the Minnesota Timberwolves last night, and they look like a team. I told you, they look like a lottery team with Anthony Edwards. They just look completely lost out there. If he's not scoring, then the team looks really, really bad.
The body language and the vibes were just horrendous. They Anthony Edwards absolutely refused to pass to anybody. And when he did, it was because he was getting trapped near half court and because he had to. It was what a I know this is a Pistons podcast, but what a mess in Minnesota right now.
Yeah, Minnesota, Joe Biden.
Yeah, Minnesota. But the one thing that the Pistons do, like when talking about like the trade deadline, like the Pistons are going to very much hold the keys and be an important piece of if a Jimmy Butler deal goes down, Detroit's going to have to be involved because they're the only team in the league with cap space. It's not just Jimmy Butler either. If, let's say for whatever reason, De'Aaron Fox asks out before the deadline, which if they go on some form of losing streak, they just fired Mike Brown. That's not, implausible. It's something, it's something that with that type of flexibility, like I said earlier, I don't think they necessarily have to give up. I don't think they have to trade Malik Beasley at a high value to go and get picks at this deadline or even a good player. Like just the fact that they have that flexibility is something that is going to reap them value in return.
I do agree, and I'm so glad you brought up Jimmy Butler because he's the next topic. We always have Pistons fans submitting in like questions for the podcast, and they want to know about Jimmy Butler and should the Pistons look to target Jimmy Butler. This is what I'll say before I ask you. Playoff Jimmy Butler is different from regular season Jimmy Butler. I just want to say that. I feel like playoff Jimmy Butler is a top 5 player. Like in just the playoffs, like the fact that he got to the Miami Heat to the NBA Finals twice and carried them on his back, great player. But he wants to get paid $50 million. I do want Pistons fans to realize that, and he's also 35 years old. And when you're talking about timelines with Cade Cunningham, who's only 23, the timelines really don't, I think, mesh well together. And I don't think you want to be committed to paying Jimmy Butler over $50 million when Cade's Supermax goes into effect next season.
Yeah, Jimmy Butler At his absolute best is a fantastic player. What he's been able to do with Miami to overachieve and get to 2 finals that, quite frankly, they had no business in being in, just from a roster construction standpoint. He is one of those special players in the league that, let's say if the Pistons were right on the doorstep of being a contender, he would be a great piece to add. But like you said, with him being 35 years old, with him being someone that I think the nicest way you could say it is divisive in some of his times in other locker rooms. The very well documented scrimmage where he took second and third stringers against the Minnesota starters and beat them to prove how soft they were, so he could exclaim it to the entire gym. I don't know if that's something you necessarily want with a culture that you're building in Detroit, especially with even though this team's playing really well, losing streaks can very much still happen. And I don't know how much he'd have a patience for that type of building when he is someone that's looking to contend and win a title and do something now. And so the waste any assets that you have, which are very, very limited on, someone who is aging, who, isn't necessarily having his best season, who doesn't necessarily to be in the greatest mindset of where he's at. I just don't know if that's something that you necessarily want to roll the dice on either. Again, Jimmy Butler is a great player and someone that, if he was a little bit younger, absolutely embodies what Detroit's about and would be someone that, I would have loved to see them go after, but not at 35, not under these current circumstances, and especially not with some of the things that we've seen happen in Jimmy Butler locker rooms in the past.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a track record. I mean, it's not just Minnesota.
Yep.
Philly, the infamous Tobias Harris over me quote.
Yep.
Which, I mean, that's a Philly problem. I mean, Philly's just, I don't know, all the talent they've
I didn't even think about that. Putting Tobias Harris and Jimmy Butler on the same team potentially after all that, like from going Tobias Harris over me to Tobias Harris with me would be a heck of a storyline.
The articles write themselves.
Yeah, they really do. They really do.
I do think Jimmy's going to get moved. And you made the point earlier, like all these superstars like Levine, who knows what happens with Phoenix? I mean, like, did you see Kevin Durant and Devin Booker smiling after they've lost like their last 1 out of 7?
Oh yeah.
That's going to implode. I'm sure Matt Ishbia is not happy about that. Like, the Pistons are in prime position to be that team saying like, how bad do you really want it? Like, we need draft capital. We'll take a bloated contract. Give us some first round picks. And I think Trajan's been really, really consistent with that throughout since he's taken the job, saying like, we're just looking for assets and players. And what's the first trade he makes? Tim Hardaway Jr. for 3 seconds. I feel like it's been kind of like a win-win trade for both sides. Like, Quentin Grimes is playing really good ball right now with Dallas. And then, THJ has had his moments here in Detroit where, he's taken over games, especially that Miami game, which is just like, I'm still thinking about that. Like, hitting that many 3-pointers in like a 30-second span is wild to me. But to kind of just finish up this topic, no to Jimmy Butler, but I think the Pistons could be involved in these 3-team trades over the next month or so.
Oh, no question. I think if a Jimmy Butler deal is going to happen, more than likely the Pistons are going to play a role in making it happen. But it won't be because they're going out and making the move for Jimmy Butler, just because, like we said, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, like, if this was a team that was like top 3 seeding in the East, maybe. But I mean, like, this team is starting to figure out how to win basketball games with just like good role players around Cade Cunningham.
Right.
I was telling Eric last week, like, what happens when you put like another star next to Cade? Like, what's the ceiling of this team? Like, how far can they go? Like, Malik Beasley, elite, just role player. Like, Tim Hardaway Jr., good role player. Tobias Harris, good vet. Like, you didn't really add a whole lot, and this team is being competitive. And you had mentioned that they've been playing like over 500 basketball just from a week-to-week basis. They've just been playing really good ball. It's crazy.
Yeah, it really is.
How petty can Riley be? He should trade Butler to Washington, Chuck Brewer. Good grief.
Oh, I mean, like, Pat Riley's. Jimmy Butler said anywhere but here. Pat Riley would say anywhere. Bet. I mean, that would. Ooh, what a storyline that would be. Talk about two guys that probably would not be two peas in a pod. Jimmy Butler and Jordan Poole. That would be popcorn to see them be teammates.
Yeah, I mean the baddies in Washington would come out though. I've been told.
I'm gonna refrain from comments.
Kind of sticking on Jimmy Butler. Did you see NBA Central? Like they're probably one of my favorite like follows on Twitter. But like when they put the Vegas odds, it was like plus 30,000 Shanghai Sharks.
Disrespect, man. The disrespect. The fact that it's even a conversation. It's not like he's washed. It's not like we're seeing a Jimmy Butler that can't play.
Oh man, like the fact that like he got suspended and then the player association is trying to appeal the suspension. Like he just called Chris Paul, like, man, you see this shit? Like get me out of it.
What a mess. What a bona fide mess. But it's here. I think you're seeing just two alphas just not backing down and not budging for anybody. And I think Pat Riley, I don't think he cares if Jimmy Butler's happy with where he goes. I just think he wants to get the best package. I mean, this is the guy who let Dwayne Wade walk. You think he's gonna give the like special treatment to anybody? He let LeBron James walk.
Let Shaq walk when he was in his prime still.
Yeah.
He doesn't care.
No.
I'm not touching that comment organic. You're a wild, my brother. I'm not touching it, but you guys are funny. Well, I can't even read that comment. It's so bad. Brian Boseman, I think we should grab Malcolm Brogdon. I mean, I like Brogdon, but I don't know what the front office thinks of him. I feel like it'd be a good backup point guard. We should have talked about that. Like, I feel like Cade, we know the type of player he is, but eventually I think it's going to wear on him where he's just tired. He might need a couple games off. Do you think maybe they try to get a backup veteran guard so Cade isn't so gassed, because you can't kind of stagger when Jaden Ivey's not out there anymore? I mean, Marcus Sasser's been that backup guard, but like, what are kind of like your thoughts on that of like maybe using that last roster spot on a veteran point guard?
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. I still think someone like Lonzo Ball from Chicago, where you could get for a minimal, for minimal compensation, is someone that would make a lot of sense, in Detroit. I also, you look at guys like, Alfred Payton, who had like a 20 plus assist game, this season for the Pelicans when he was playing and was solely cut for financial reasons. I think someone like him would make sense. I think just having another body and just someone that can handle that facilitation and take that pressure off of Cade, to your point, is something that's going to be, paramount, because Cade's been playing absolute lights out, but he's been playing like 35, 36 plus minutes a night, which just feels unsustainable at this rate, especially when you're talking about wanting to play deeper into the season. You can clearly tell his conditioning has improved and has come a long way, from the beginning of his career. So it's not really like a question on Cade's conditioning. It's just this kind of load on any player is just something that, you just can't necessarily sustain. And the ask that you're going to have with Cade with Ivy out is only going to go up. So to me, I think it's something that they almost have to look at just from a necessity standpoint of keeping Cade going and to keep this team afloat in that light, because that's, I mean, you want to talk about a player that goes down, that ends your season, is Cade Cunningham. Like that's the player that if he goes down, it all goes down. So I just think that I think that it would be, I think it would be very beneficial for them just to have someone else who can play that role and can bring just some form of playmaking, to the lineup when Cade's out. If Marcus Sasser can start filling that role a little bit more, that's great. It's just, that's not Marcus Sasser's natural position. He's never been comfortable with it. I don't know if you can necessarily rely on him to make that type of turn right now. So
yeah, it's we've talked about Sasser and being more of a two guard than a point guard. I feel like I've talked about so many guys that you could possibly go after. You can't go after Dennis Schroeder, who I thought would have been like a prime candidate, but he's really struggling in Golden State.
Yep.
We've mentioned D'Angelo Russell, but it looks like he's going to be staying in Brooklyn, and then he's already injured. So, I mean, the Nets are going to net. They're trying to,
And even if he's bought out, I just don't know if going to Detroit is where he would want to go. Like, I would imagine he'd probably want to play on a contender for a minimum, but even then, what contenders bringing in D'Angelo Russell? So,
yeah, I mean, we've talked about Lonzo Ball, which I think if the price is as low as the Bulls are, saying, I think that would be a good get for the Pistons. Let's talk about a floor general that could really relax stuff out there.
Mm-hmm.
As a relationship with Fred Vincent and Ranger Langdon, played in New Orleans, so there's definitely a connection with the front office and Lonzo there. I mean, that's a player you could look at. I know some people have mentioned John Wall. Like, I don't really know if John Wall at this stage of his career would want to go to the Pistons, given like what he said about the Houston Rockets a few years ago. Even though the Pistons are winning more games, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Even then, like, how long has it been since John Wall has touched an NBA court? Do you really want to, like pull that, pull that type of move when there are guys who are, who have shown are ready to go now? I just, in my opinion, I think there's other options out there that, are kind of less risk averse, and you can get some level of play going in.
Yeah, I mean, like if Phoenix implodes, like maybe Tyus Jones does get traded to Detroit. Maybe you have a reunion with Monte Morris. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
what happens with Minnesota? I'd like Mike Conley on this team. I think Mike Conley would be just like a perfect bet for this team because he's been there, done that before.
Apparently, per Hoops Hype, the Pistons actually just signed a new two-way player from the Maine Celtics, Ron Harper Jr. He played really well at the G League showcase, and now he is going to be a part of the Pistons. I mean, obviously, since he's a two-way, you probably don't imagine he's going to play a whole ton with the main roster, but just something to note.
Yeah, because I read earlier that Javonte McCoy had a knee injury ending his season, so
Mm-hmm.
they signed someone from the player pool. But Ron Harper Jr. Interesting. Maybe they're trying to have a reunion with Dylan Harper.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, I would just, if the Pistons do give any two-way players some shine this season, I know I mentioned on Twitter before. I think I mentioned a little bit on this pod before, but Cole Swider is absolutely hooping. And when you talk about, like things that you need in this league, guys who can shoot from beyond the arc, someone who, knows his someone who would know his roles, very high IQ, just somewhat like just from the interactions I've had with him, just incredibly impressed with his basketball acumen. Just someone that, I mean, I don't know how much run he would have, especially as the season goes on and the games get more crucial with standings and things like that. But, there's some decent players in the Cruise system right now. And I think you're only going to see more and more G League players make an impact as the years go on.
I know we traded for a former lottery pick, Romeo Langford.
That's
last
right.
week. That guy, honestly, man, like I was really high on him. Like he got selected right before Sekou.
Yep, that's right. Yep.
Went to the Celtics with the 14th pick. I'm gonna say I have not watched a whole lot of Cruise games. The little games that I have watched, I'm just watching for Bobby Klitman. But to your point, like Cole Swider, man, like something about those Syracuse wings, man, they could just shoot the ball. It's crazy. Like Buddy Boeheim right now in OKC for their G League affiliate. Like,
yep.
People were giving Buddy so much crap for being a nepotism pick, but like he's one of the best sharpshooter in the G League. Like it's insane.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the guy was shooting the laces out when he was at the Cruise as well. Like it's not like he was just, like you said, like, yeah, there was a relationship there, but sometimes when you have those relationships, you can see when someone's actually pretty good.
Yeah. It's a fact. We need to spy down in the Memphis G League affiliate and see what they're stashing there just to get it right repetitively. Memphis, like I don't get how they get away with it. Like
it's elite coaching. It's just like they are a underrated organization when it comes to player development, spotting talent, scouting. Like It is crazy, just like the depths in which they find productive basketball players.
Yeah, it really is. I don't want to keep you on too long because I'm sure you're like me. You probably want to see the Lions-Vikings game that just started.
Of course.
The fact that we had people even watching us tonight, this kind of tells you that Pistons fans are, excited about Pistons basketball in the future. But if you have anything you want to plug or promote, I did put your social media links down in the description below for people that are watching, so they can just click the links and support and follow you. But anything you're working on in the future, let the people know.
Yeah, big things are just, if you want more Pistons content and, basketball podcasts as a whole, I have a, From Half Court Pistons NBA podcast that you can find on YouTube at From Half Court. You can also follow me at Sean Half Court on Twitter, where you'll see any coverage for games as well. I'll be at the Portland game and the Toronto game this week, so looking forward to that. But dude, just thanks for having me on. And yeah, if you want to see us talk more Pistons as well, Anthony's going to be coming on the podcast this week too. So more content from us coming very soon.
So that's tomorrow, correct?
Yes, it is.
Let's go, man. Let's go.
Look at you go. Look at you go. You remembered.
Oh, yeah. Bro, I'm a sicko. I remember that, just the craziest little detail to anything. Honestly,
yeah.
like I had brought something up to Jeff one time. He's like, "How the fuck did you remember that?" I was just like, dude, so I got a mind like an elephant over here, man. Like, I don't say anything, but I remember everything.
Oh yeah, no, I am very similar. It's like most people are like, "Oh yeah, no, this sport's pretty cool." How are like, and I'm like over here thinking about, man, Antonio McDyess was such a dependable sixth man in 2005.
Shout out Dice.
Shout out Antonio McDyess.
Okay, guys. Well, we'll see you guys tomorrow.
It's time to end the pod when Antonio McDyess is brought up.
I'm just glad we didn't have to talk about Killian Hayes once on this podcast because of the triple double. Which, I mean, Chuck has been doing his best to try to get me to react to Killian Hayes, but I'm not doing it today.
Dude, that happened right in Grand Rapids too. I was minutes away from being able to go and witness that, and I missed the opportunity. Just, man, I missed the Killian Hayes masterclass.
Man, that's crazy. We'll see you guys tomorrow. We'll be on Sean's YouTube channel. I believe you said at 10 a.m., correct?
Yeah, that's correct. We can do it live if you want.
I don't know how many people would be watching at 10 a.m.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, for sure.
You never know, but I will also be live probably at 10 o'clock at night after the Pistons Portland game, doing post-game podcast throughout the season. But appreciate all 50 of you guys in here. The fact that there's still 50 people in here when the Lions are playing, like I don't get it. I don't understand it. Love you guys. See you guys tomorrow. Take care. Have a good weekend. Go Lions.
Go Lions.